Let's talk about the next one. The next one is the biggest challenge for most of us, right? It's called emotional hunger. You remember the story I told you before? The kid runs, falls, skins their knee, mom comes, kisses, hugs, chocolate chip cookie. Now the kid goes, chocolate chip cookie, mom's love. And 45 years later, that same kid is walking through a mall and there's cookies on sample outside of some shop and they're like, I have to have one because it's mom's love, right? Emotions drive us to eat. And as I said before, many times it's not just the emotion, it's the nostalgia of that particular emotion. Nostalgia is a very, very powerful driver. I just spent the summer in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, where I mostly grew up. And we went there to go have our baby. And so we spent the summer there. And I found myself driving around streets that I hadn't seen in like ages. Like, you know, I grew up there. I left there when I was 18 years old. And so there I was back in the city driving around. And it was really weird because sometimes I'd be driving along and then I'd see this and I go, I know that street. And my wife would go, oh no, because she knows I'm going to turn and go down that street because I got to go find the memory. The feeling of nostalgia is a powerful driver for us. We want to go back and experience our memories. And so food is an absolutely wonderful shortcut for that. If you're like, remember I told you the rules, rainy day on a Sunday, pancakes? Well, the funniest thing of all is rainy day, Sunday pancakes. I can still remember I'd go off and make them and I'd feel the love and the joy of my family on those rainy days and Sundays. And even though it's decades later, right? And so the emotions that drive us to eat are really, really powerful. They're not functional though. They're really not. And in a weird way, it's yet another evolutionary protection that's actually getting in our way. Here's what I mean. I want you to think about something for a minute. First of all, I want you to think about how special you are. I mean this, like how statistically special you are. First of all, in order to produce you, your father had to produce 300 million sperm. 300 million. And then they competed, man. They swam hard to get to the goal. One of those 300 million made it. You are a 1 in 300 million shot, okay? But even more than that, do a little time machine trip with me here. How many parents did you have? 2? I mean, I know there's some weird combinations, but genetically you should have 2, right? And then how many grandparents? 4. And then 8, and then 16, and then 32, 64, 128, 256, 512. And if we go back 20 generations, you had 1 million ancestors at a time when there was like 80% infant mortality and life was really scary and dangerous most of the time. You are an unbelievably unlikely event in the universe. And you have some software inside you that says, if I'm still alive, I must be doing it right. But our life these days is so safe that we can do all kinds of things wrong and still be alive, but the software still says, if I'm still alive, I must be doing something right. And this idea of emotional hunger is one of those issues. I skinned my knee, I fell down, I ate the cookie, I'm still alive. Eating the cookie must be the right response at that moment. And so what we want to do is notice how we're using food to satisfy those emotional needs, because those needs are so significant that we will do anything we can to satisfy them. Let me give you an example of this. If we take a child on a shopping expedition, okay, grocery shopping, you know how children love to do that. Let's take a 3-year-old. We take a 3-year-old, we strap them into the cart, all right? They're in the cart. And then both parents take the child shopping. And then the parents down one aisle, the father's down one aisle, the mother's down the other, and the child's in the shopping cart. Now, let's talk about the child's emotional state at this point. People have a fundamental need to feel connected to the people around them, to their community. How connected do you think that child is feeling, sitting strapped into that cart while the parents are paying attention to everything but the child? Zero connection, right? And then people have a fundamental need to feel important in their lives, important to themselves, important to the people around them. How important do you think that child feels strapped in, parents away? Not. Zero. How much variety? It's a fundamental human need to feel a sense of variety and joy and like, you know, experiential variety in the world. How much variety is that child feeling sitting in that chair strapped in? Zero. Are you beginning? Oh, and by the way, how much certainty is the child feeling, right? How much certainty is that child feeling in that moment, strapped in? Well, it might be feeling a little certain about its boredom, but fundamentally it's going, oh my God, how much longer do I have to sit in this chair? I don't know how much longer. No certainty. So what will the child begin to do at that stage? It will begin to do anything it can to satisfy those emotional needs. So it'll start by asking questions and talking. Mom, mom, dad, dad, mom, mom, dad, dad. and they may passively answer or ignore. And if they don't give the child enough connection, significance, certainty, variety, all those things, then the child will begin to act up, and it might even begin to yell and scream and cry. It might even reach over and knock things off the counter, right? Isn't it possible? Now, what happens when one of the parents comes up, grabs the cart, and says, "Stop that," and yells at the child, or in some countries, maybe even smacks the child? Is that good or bad? It's clearly bad. But for the child in that moment, it's actually not. Now, I'm not saying it's good for them. What I'm saying is, in terms of satisfying their emotional needs, it achieved the goal. And the moment that parent is looking straight into that child's eyes, shaking them, maybe even striking them, here's what's going on. The child feels 100% connected. The child feels unbelievably important in that moment. The child felt an incredible amount of variety and venture because it knew bad things were going to happen. It just didn't know when. And the child feels really certain in that moment, really certain. And so all of its needs are suddenly getting met at a major level. Remember, if I'm alive, what I've been doing so far must be working, so I'll keep doing it. And that child will learn that that's how to satisfy their emotional needs. We've done the same thing with food. There are foods you eat right now that you think make you feel better, aren't there? But the question is, do they really make you feel better? Do they? Because I'm going to suggest that maybe they don't. One of our clients in one of our early WildFit classes, she found herself cutting out a little bit of chocolate in the early parts of the program. We told her not to. We said, you aren't supposed to cut anything out, but she found herself wanting to. As she paid attention to her dialogue and she noticed the way, well, if I eat the chocolate, this and that, and she saw the whole dialogue, and it started making her not want the chocolate, so she started cutting it down. And we told her, you can't do that, you can't do that. So one day, and I think it was actually Thursday of her first week, she came in to do a check-in. It was a live coaching client. And she goes, I did it, I ate chocolate. And we're like, okay, so what happened? And she goes, well, I got into a really big fight with my husband. I got into this big argument with my husband, and I got so angry and so upset that I came home and I ate all the chocolate. I ate all of it. Why? I was so angry. And it turned out that in a weird way, she ate the chocolate to show him, to punish him for being bad. Really? I heard this expression once that resentment is the poison you drink hoping to kill somebody else. So she quite literally ate the chocolate hoping to punish him. He can buy more chocolate. Who did she really punish? And this is where it became really fascinating. Because after eating the chocolate, because she was on the program, because she was paying attention to the food timeline, she noticed how she felt before she made the decision. She felt angry. She felt disappointed. She felt hurt. She noticed how she felt the minute she decided to eat the chocolate. She felt free. She felt tough and brave. And then she noticed how she felt while she was eating it. She went, wow, this is really, really sweet. I kind of enjoyed the first taste, but now I'm just stuffing my face. Then she noticed that she went into a kind of a food amnesia, whereas she doesn't even remember the fourth, fifth, sixth bite. It just happened automatically. Then she noticed when she was done, she had a sticky feeling in her mouth, and it didn't really feel all that good. And her self-esteem felt bad that she'd eaten all that chocolate. And most importantly of all, she noticed that 20 or 30 minutes later, she actually had a weird lightheadedness and a sugar rush, and she felt dizzy, and her stomach felt a bit sick. And then she realized she never punished her husband. She punished herself. Your emotions need to be satisfied. And if you use food to satisfy them, then you're going to create some unwanted health side effects unless you're using the right foods to satisfy them. And so what I would love for you to think about right now is, or I'd love to notice right now, is when you decide to eat a food, particularly foods that you think of as rather unhealthy, I want you to notice why you're eating it. I want you to notice how you think it's going to make you feel. Because here's the thing, every single thing you do, every decision you make, every action you take is designed to make you feel better or different than you do right now. Same with food. You choose a given food because you have a perception it's going to make you feel a certain way. Your homework right now is to notice how you think that food is going to make you feel, and whether or not it really does make you feel that way. And if it does even do that, for how long you feel that way before you don't feel that way again. What some of you are going to begin to notice is that there's a weird little conveyor belt, and it works like this. Emotional emptiness, decision to eat the food, I feel better, eat the food, I do feel a little better, a little bit later, I feel really bad again, and I need to eat some more of the food. Anybody had that happen? I think maybe so. So really pay attention to your emotional hungers. Notice this. Now, this is very important. This is a very powerful thing we're doing right now. As you begin to do this, you might find yourself wanting to reduce or even eliminate foods. Don't do it, right? Stick with it. Stick with it. Even if you find yourself eating something and going, I'm not even enjoying this. In fact, I'm really unenjoying it. I don't like it. I dislike it. Forget Eric, man. I'm not eating this. Eat it. All right? Play the game full out if you want the lasting change. And then we have another hunger. And that hunger is called low blood sugar hunger. Low blood sugar hunger is something we're going to deal with a lot on this program. We're going to talk a little bit about it right now, and when we get to like weeks 5 and 6, we're going to talk a lot about low blood sugar hunger. But let's talk about what it really means. You see, your body has 2 fuel sources. It can burn sugar and it can burn fat. And so what happens is that you have a certain amount of blood sugar most of the time, and your body uses that sugar to drive its engines, to walk around, to breathe, to think, and all this kind of stuff, right? When your blood sugar runs a little low, a bunch of interesting things can happen. In fact, maybe you've heard in marathon running of something called the wall. The wall usually happens at around 17 miles. So somebody's running along, they're doing the marathon, and they get to the 17th mile, and boom, they hit the wall. They can't go any further, they're done. The marathon's over for them. Or they really struggle to get anywhere after that. Here's what's happened, is it takes about 2,000 calories to run a marathon. And you, right now, hold in your bloodstream around 2,500 calories. And so, once you've hit to the 17th, 18th mile, you've burned almost 2,000 calories, your body starts to go, oh my God, we're almost out. And it says, go into shutdown mode. Don't do any more. We can't let ourselves run out. And so you hit low blood sugar. Now, that's an extreme example, but this happens to us quite a lot, doesn't it, in just day-to-day life? Let me give you some ways to look at it. Have you ever found that you're unpredictably grumpy, or that your moods become a little darker all of a sudden for some reason? This may not happen to you, but I'll bet you know people that it does happen to. You see, because for very many people, when they get into low blood sugar, their mood starts to go down. And I suspect, and this may sound a little crazy, but I don't know if you've ever seen lions eating at a kill. The lions are there and they fight with each other to get at the food. I suspect that as our blood sugar gets low like that, it makes us grumpy so we can fight for our food better. Because I'm telling you something. Now, this is a secret just between you and me, but my wife, if her blood sugar gets low, don't tell her I told you this, but if her you guys, nobody tell her I told you this, but I'm talking to the crew now as well. If her blood sugar gets low, she reaches this thing that we call code blue. Code blue means I might lose my life. Now, I'm kidding. This was an old pattern that we used to run before we made some big changes to the way we live and the way we eat. But it was a big joke between us that we'd be traveling around the world, we'd be somewhere, and she'd say, Eric, I need to eat. And I go, yeah, me too. And she goes, no, I don't think you understand. I think I'm approaching code blue. At that point, I would do anything in my power to get her food. I mean, we don't want to have code blue. Now, we're at a place now where the way we eat, our blood sugar doesn't have these big peaks and drops anymore, so we don't have code blue as a reality. But I suspect that some of the people watching this video right now might. And so it's really important to notice when blood sugar is the issue for you. And over the next few weeks, we're going to show you how to manage your blood sugar so that low blood sugar is not a motivator. What's happening for most people in the world right now is they're having low blood sugar, and that's triggering negative emotions. And so between low blood sugar and the negative emotion, all of a sudden, boom, they're eating something. And what do you think they're eating? The most functional, healthy thing? I mean, wow, I'm having low blood sugar and I'm feeling a bit low. I think I'll get myself a plate of broccoli. No, I don't think so, right? Isn't it going to be chocolate or ice cream or cake or something like that? And so it's really interesting to notice when low blood sugar is amplifying things. In fact, I want you to start to think of it like this. Imagine that each of these hungers we're describing, they are individual little food devils. Each one of them, they're your food committee, right? And so if you let yourself get dehydrated, what's going to happen is the little thirst guy, he's going to come along and go, excuse me, eat please, eat please. And then the emotional hunger guy is going to go, yeah, we should eat. I'm feeling a little low. And the low blood sugars guy is going to jump right in there and go, well, the reason you're feeling low is we have low blood sugar. You should jump in. And it's like a democracy. The more of your hungers want you to eat, the more you're going to eat and the less control you'll have over the decision yourself. And so what we're going to do is work to neutralize each of these little guys and get them to eat rationally. So what are we doing? 6 to 8 glasses of water a day. Now what happens is the emotional hunger guy, he goes over to, he's like, emotional hunger, he's like, oh, I'm feeling a little low right now. I really feel like I could eat something. Hey, thirst. Hey, thirst. Shouldn't we eat and thirst right now because you've been eating 6 to 8 glasses of, or you've been drinking 6 to 8 glasses of water a day? Thirst is going back, no, I'm all right. And emotional hunger is going, oh. Hey, blood sugar, how you doing, right? They're going to look around for friends to get you to make these decisions, and we're going to neutralize them one at a time. And we'll show you how to neutralize low blood sugar over the weeks that come. The next one to pay attention to is a very good one. It's called variety. It's called variety, and it's a very good one to pay attention to because its driver, where it comes from, the reason we have it is that we need a variety of different foods to satisfy our huge nutritional requirements. There are traditionally 200 plant species that humans used to eat. Really, in the wild, in nature, humans consumed over the course of a whole year, because all 200 weren't available on any one day, they would eat 200 different plant species a year. Take a moment right now. How many do you eat? How many? Like in a year, how many different plant species do you eat? Because I'll tell you what we experience when we're dealing with people on this is that there are some people that it's as low as 5. And that's because they generously count the slice of tomato and lettuce that they put in their burger, right? Or, the FDA, don't you love, for those of you who are Americans, you'll understand what I mean by the FDA. For the rest of you, it's the Food and Drug Administration that's supposed to create guidelines to help America be healthy. They're doing a great job, can't you tell? And so, you know what they did recently? Isn't it wonderful? Pizza counts as one of your 5 a day because the tomato sauce is a vegetable, right? Which, by the way, the number 2 ingredient on the tomato sauce, anybody want to guess? It's sugar in a lot of cases. And so this desire that we have for variety stems from the fact that in nature we were eating 200 different plant species a year, never mind the different types of nuts and animals that we were hunting and all that kind of different stuff. And now people are getting almost no variety in their plants, but we're getting tons of variety in their sugars. They're getting tons of varieties in their junk food. And that desire, and here's some evidence of it. Have you ever had this experience? You're with your friends and you go, hey, we're gonna go and out for dinner and let's go for Italian. And one of your friends says, oh, I went for Italian like 2 days ago. I was thinking we should have something different. Could we go for sushi? No, we can't go. I had sushi yesterday, right? You see, people want variety in their food. And so we want to pay attention to this for 2 reasons. The one is that we want to look for variety. What I want you to do right now even is as you're going in the grocery store and you're shopping, I just want you to notice all the different types of fruits and vegetables that you don't currently buy. That you don't buy because you're not comfortable with them, you're not used to them. And I want you to notice them. And I want you to think of it in these terms. We need to relearn. We need to learn food differently. Because the people that have been teaching us about food right now, they've been doing it for their own profit. Are you familiar with Kellogg's? Sure. If you're from North America, you definitely are. Even some places in Europe. Kellogg's is probably one of the biggest cereal producers in the world. And Kellogg himself was a phenomenal marketer, very smart guy. And one day he noticed something. He noticed that the school board, that the schools were out of money, that they didn't have enough money for educational materials and activities and all this sort of stuff. And so what did he do? Genius move as a marketer. He had these gorgeous posters printed up, beautiful color posters, beautiful drawings that would appeal to kids, and he created 4 food groups. Yeah, 4 food groups. And you can guess that one of those food groups was grains, because prior to that, they weren't. They were an occasional thing. They were something that people did from time to time. I mean, after all, we all know man cannot live on bread alone. Only suddenly, grain became one of the 4 food groups. And suddenly bread was at every meal, cereal was breakfast for America, breakfast of champions and all. You got to get your Wheaties. And although I don't think Wheaties are made by Kellogg's, but the point is still the same. And so what happened in that moment was he educated the world, and the world changed the way they ate in a really, really bad way. By the way, I'd love to point this out, that the food industry doesn't just do marketing, they do lobbying. Right? And this just came out a few weeks ago, that some lobbyists from the sugar industry, they hired some Harvard researchers, right? They hired some Harvard researchers and they said, hey, we'd like you to conduct a study. And here's why they did it, because this is in the 60s. In the early part of the 60s, a bunch of research began to suggest that sugar was a problem, that sugar might be a major cause of heart disease and other problems. And so the sugar lobby said, well, that'll be bad for business, right? So they go off and they hire these 2 Harvard researchers to do a study. And the purpose of the study was to link fat to heart disease. Yeah, they wanted to link fat to heart disease. These guys did their fake study, and they managed to get the study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is like the Bible of medicine, right? Now, the New England Journal of Medicine today would not allow this, because now, in order to get published in the journal, you have to disclose who your funders of your study were. Back then, you didn't have to do that. So these guys got their study published in the journal, and boom, it just became gospel. Fat is the problem, not sugar. By the way, that's in the 60s. In the 1970s, in America, there was almost nobody in America under 40 years old with type 2 diabetes. In fact, back then, it was called adult onset diabetes. There was regular diabetes and adult onset diabetes. But then what happened is that young people started getting diabetes. Why? Well, Kellogg got them all eating all kinds of breakfast cereals full of grains and sugars, and the sugar lobby convinced everybody that fat was the problem and sugar was okay. And today, remember, in the 70s, almost nobody under 40 with what we now call type 2 diabetes. And today there are something like 20 million young people in America with diabetes or prediabetes. 20 million. Think about that. This is really, really important, because you see, when we want to create variety for ourselves, they're going to answer our desire for variety with all kinds of dysfunctional, disease-causing foods. What we have to do is satisfy our sense of variety by learning a new eating paradigm, which is why you're here. And one more example of how this works. There was a reserve, a forest reserve. It's in South Africa on the Garden Route. And what they do there, they bought this big chunk of land, and what they do is they rehabilitate exotic monkeys that people thought would be nice to have as pets and then realize they're not. And so you have all these like primates that, you know, can't go back and live in the wild, but equally can't be kept as pets and so on. So they release these primates into this big forest, and they get to live in this reserve area. When they first bought the reserve, they built these huge fences. The fences are not designed to keep the monkeys in, because these small primates can jump the fences no problem. The fences were designed to keep the big baboons out, right? Because the big baboons might come in and kill the other monkeys. Now, the reason that they were nervous at this point was the local monkeys, they're called vervet monkeys. And the local monkeys, they were afraid that as they started bringing the exotic primates in, the local monkeys would leave. And the reason they were worried about that is that they knew that a lot of these exotic primates had no idea what was edible in this forest. Luckily, the vervet monkeys didn't leave. And so what would happen, it's so amazing, they would bring these primates and put them in cages for quarantine for like around 2 weeks, just to make sure they're healthy and stuff before they released them in the forest. And they would sit at the cage and watch the vervet monkeys walking around the forest and notice what they eat. And then when they released them from the cage, they would follow, they're not friends, they're different species, but they would follow them and watch what they ate and eat what they ate. Primates learn through observation. Primates learn through observation. Unfortunately, most of what we observe in the nutritional world right now is dysfunctional and bad. I want you to notice this. Like, for example, if you're still, eating fast food from time to time, which if you were last week, you should be this week, I want you to look around. We look around at the other people that are eating in there and ask yourself, is this demonstrative of the kind of lifestyle and health that I ultimately would like to have? And I want you to notice which monkeys you should be following. Because I'm thinking the monkeys you should be following around are the ones that look the way you want to look, that have the energy that you want to have, that have the health that you want to have, and then eat what they're eating. Now, this week you keep eating the way you have been eating, but you notice this stuff. You notice the way you're satisfying these needs. So let's go back through the hungers again, right? Thirst, you're going to neutralize that with 6 to 8 glasses of water a day. Nutritional hunger is the only genuine one, but it's so drowned out by the other ones that it's hard to know for certain when that one's triggering. I will tell you that at times if you find yourself craving fat or craving salt, those are natural nutritional hungers, right? The challenge is they're amplified by the other hungers. Remember, empty stomach hunger. Empty stomach is actually not a hunger. It's just a feeling. So begin to notice if you do find yourself, for example, waking up in the morning, notice, wow, that's what my stomach feels empty. And I may not necessarily be hungry. Excellent. Then we have the emotional hunger. How are you trying to change the way you feel? When you choose to eat something, what emotional state are you trying to have? Like, do you eat popcorn when you go to the movies? Why? What is it about popcorn? And by the way, let's be really clear. Let's be really clear. Popcorn tastes disgusting. No, hold on, hold your horses. You might agree with me, you might not, but let me just suggest this to you. I'm going to suggest to you that popcorn tastes disgusting until you add the butter or plastic fat that they use, and salt. Before you add those things, it tastes like cardboard, right? And so, why are we eating that? What emotion are we trying to satisfy when we eat it? By the way, after I said this to you, you might find yourself not wanting popcorn. Eat it anyway. So just eat it. Make sure you eat it, the popcorn or whatever that food is. Remember, just because this is going to happen quite a lot, by the way, where I'm going to discuss a specific food, and after I mention certain things about that food, you might not want that food anymore. I don't care. You got to eat it until I ask you to stop. Trust the program. And again, then we talked about low blood sugar hunger. You're going to notice that, and also variety. How do you satisfy your desire for variety? I want to take one more backward step for a minute just to go back to emotional hunger. This is really important. When you decide to eat something, notice how you feel, how you think it's going to make you feel, how it really does make you feel, and how you feel half an hour later. It's really important you slow time down and watch that emotional roller coaster, because I think what you're going to find very often is you feel a certain way, you think the food is going to make you feel better, it sometimes does even make you feel a bit better, but it's short-lived and you're right back to over here wanting to eat that food again. So pay close attention. And I have a couple of little homework assignments for you. So your homework assignments are to be a lot more active about what I'm saying to you right now. The first one is, I want you to really pay attention to your dialogue now that we're really getting into this different types of hungers. I want you to really notice how you are talking to yourself about the food. That's thing one. And if you really want to play full out with this, write the script once, at least once. So later today, tomorrow, you go to eat something that you think of as maybe not as healthy as it could be. Notice the way you talk yourself in and out of it, in and out of it. It's going to be like this. Oh, we get to go and have some, ice cream. No, we really shouldn't be eating ice cream. We wouldn't really normally eat ice cream. Well, come on, we do from time to time. And Eric said that we should have it. I don't care what Eric said. He's not living in my body, and he's not the guy who's going to have to feel that way after we eat the ice cream. Yeah, but he said to do the program, we got to eat the ice cream, right? So I want you to pay attention to that dialogue, and if you really want to play the homework full out, write the script. And by the way, here's what I'd love for you to do. Post that script online somewhere and hashtag it WildFit. Post the script and hashtag it WildFit. I love reading people's food scripts. It's so much fun. Homework item number 2. Notice which of the emotional hungers is making you eat in that moment. And sometimes it's more than one. So it might be that they're combining, but just notice which emotional hungers are making you eat. And homework number 3 that's kind of related to that is, as I've already said, notice the emotional roller coaster. How do you feel before the decision to eat something? How do you think it's going to make you feel? How does it make you feel? And how does it really make you feel later? Notice all those things, keep eating the way you're eating, and I'll see you tomorrow.